wreck avoidances,
Stay low. He's high, stay low.
daring passes,
You're going to get it.
silly jumps,
Oh my God, a drive-through.
the thrill of victory,
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
and the occasional mishap.
My sim crash.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
A new beginning with familiar faces. For the first time, Lionheart is going back to its roots. 18 races to determine who is the best and the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-an-hour Indy cars, inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one inaugural champion, whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. Find out next. The Lionheart Speedway Series, presented by DMLC Racing Channel, starts now.
The Lionheart Racing Series has made its trek to the Magic Mile as many drivers look to bring a sparkle to their championship hopes. Last time out for its Speedway Series drivers at the Brickyard, it was Ascari Autosport driver Barrett Rolfe who broke through for his first career victory. That has thrust him into the championship conversation with Tony Schowen and Alexis Newsom. Those three drivers all entered the Granite State with one goal in mind: score strong points and survive. Who will bring home the virtual lobster? We're about to find out. This is the Espo Designs New Hampshire 175, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. Hello everyone and welcome to RaceSpotTV and ESTV's coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside with the booth tonight is Lorenzo Bonder, with Arjuna Kankipati in the producer's seat. TV cameras are provided by Esteban Balu and TrackCams22.com. You can follow along with the live timing and scoring by heading to our partners at timing71.org to follow along with your favorite team and drivers in the real and virtual worlds of motorsports. Let's dive into our pre-race show, the Sim Experience Countdown to Green, as these drivers look to count down their chances to be able to score valuable points after a wild triple crown race at Indianapolis. These drivers are now very tightly contested with a lot of high-pressure tracks upcoming, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very important because we only have 8 rounds to go, including this one. And every point you can get and you can carry to the Auto Club, which is our final event, the final race, the follow of the Triple Crown, makes a whole lot of difference. And in a track that it can be very, very easy to make a mistake, especially if you ride the low line.
It's going to be very interesting to see how these drivers handle New Hampshire tonight. A lot of pressure is at stake with how things have fared out in the championship. Let's take a look at those driver standings presented by the DMLC Racing Channel, and it's tight. 3 drivers separated by 8 points, with Tony Schowen and Adrenaline Motorsports at the top of the board with 474 total points. That reduced a lot after Barrett Rolfe and Ascari Autosport came away with a victory to a 2-point deficit. Alexis Newsom had an up-and-down race in that event as well after technical issues. The factory-back driver just 8 points behind in the standings. And don't forget, if anything slips up amongst those competitors, Matt Taylor and Alexander Van de Sant are in range to be able to attack Lorenzo.
Yeah, and we have to take consideration that Barrett just had the perfect race going to Indianapolis, job-kicked everybody from 4 spots up to getting to P2 in the standings, now leading the rookie standings, as we're going to see in a little bit as well, Justin. So what a drive he has had. Finally, the struck look for actually the Fat Lady sang for him. And we carry into a race that, if he does well, it can be very good for him as we go into some other tricky tracks in the calendar.
It's been interesting how the driver standings have fared out. It's been interesting how the team standings presented by HyperX have fared out as well. Adrenaline Motorsports is at the top of the board. They and Factory Backed, along with Team Red and Black, have been very hotly contested. It's been an impressive team standings championship so far as well, Lorenzo, especially with some of the performances from some of the organizations.
Yes, it is. Even though we're still seeing a very retaining lead from Adrenaline Motorsports, and the job they've been doing has been very good. I think Factory Back and Race First has brought up a little bit of the heat and are poking at the door of Adrenaline slowly but surely. So I think this is one of these key rounds where Adrenaline boys have to perform.
It absolutely is going to be a high-pressure round indeed, and keep in mind that points gap was just about 132 points before that double points-paying Triple Crown event. Let's take a look at the rookie standings presented by Butt Kicker, and Barrett Rolfe has been stellar this season, along with Alexis Newsom. They're two of the drivers in the championship conversation, along with Matt Taylor and Alexander Van Dessen. But don't forget about one competitor who's had limited starts this season. Robert Malechka III for Factory Back has also been a contender for many victories, Lorenzo, this campaign.
Yeah, and so far in practice over here, he's in P2, so he should be a driver that we should be looking on. He is one of these dangerous drivers, know how to adapt to these kind of ovals. So Malechka, if he has a really good race over here, could climb up, not climb up a few spots, but could contend Alexander Van Dessen for that top 4 spot in this race.
It's been pressure-packed for all the standings so far this season. Let's take the opportunity to look towards your series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code minus273LH RS15 for 15% off orders. Again, we're using the Dallara DW12 custom fixed setups, which means these drivers with this chassis do not have in-car tools. That's going to be important for tonight. As well, it's going to be important to make sure you've had that preparation with that custom fixed setup, because line is going to be very important as a result, as well as preparation with that setup.
Yeah, because we're in a track that is very deceiving. We kind of say it is a two-dimensional race, but with the custom fixed setup, I was looking at some of the drivers. It is a very tricky line on the bottom line. You can actually do it at the cost of, burning the tires, scrubbing them around, losing grip, and also with the possibility of spinning around. So you have to be very patient on when to make the move and where to make the move for you to climb up a few spots in the grid.
It's going to be very critical indeed for our drivers. As we take a look at your event details, the DW12 is making its 3rd trip to the Magic Mile, where the race has only ended under caution once in 4 races across Lionheart IndyCar history here at this track. Fewest cautions, though, 7. So this is a track where attrition is expected. Speaking with a lot of drivers for tonight, they were expecting the potential of trouble, especially with the difficulty that can come into play to make some moves in the early going.
Yeah, because everything is so packed, and you have to find your pacing, and you have to find your placing in the track, that a little bit of attrition can actually happen in the first few laps, in the starts, and especially restarts can get a little bit convoluted. So there is a really good chance we might see a certain number of cautions in this race. Will it be 7? Will it be even more than 7? We don't know, but the preparation has been key for this track, and I think a lot of drivers have put up that preparation.
The most for these drivers, 9 back in Season 5 of LIS competition. And oh, by the way, keep in mind, these drivers have had different lengths in the past to the running of this event. 150 miles in the past for LIS competition, It's gone up as high as 200 miles. We go 175 miles this evening. But drivers continue their preparation in practice for tonight. And as talked about, this is going to be a tricky track. Many competitors have talked about trying to avoid the first lane, because if you go to the very bottom of the racetrack or try and take a 3-wide move, it can spell disaster here at this circuit.
Yes, it can, because it doesn't look like, it looks like the track is flat of sort, but it is a variable banking starting at 2 and all the way up to 7 degrees with a 12% grade, and there's only 1 degree in the straightaway, so it's a very shallow track itself. So if you misjudge the line, especially going to the bottom line and you try to go for a big dive, you kind of have to maybe lift the car, just let the car go by, and you're going to lose a few spots in the mix. So again, patience, traffic management, and saving the tires are going to be very important.
Tires are going to be important. One thing to also notice, these drivers get ready for qualifying. The gauntlet was thrown down by race control tonight. A butt kicker will be rewarded to a random driver that finishes if the race goes caution-free. In other words, pressure is on to stay attrition-free here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway in the Magic Mile. But the competitors are now making their way to qualify. And speaking with some of the competitors, a lot talked about their preparation focused straight up on qualifying, because track position is keen at this track. Robert Malechka III in particular said he spent a lot of the practices preparing for that. Others are struggling off that slippery pit exit, Lorenzo. Matt Taylor, we just seen, had a bit of a struggle there.
Yeah, Matt Taylor had a little bit of a struggle, had to bring back the car into the pits once again. But yeah, track position, I think more than any other track, I think in this calendar, it is going to be essential. If you are maybe within top 6 is where you might see that comfortable number, as they're always going to run that high sideline, maybe going to the middle during the fast laps. But it's, if you get within the middle of the pack, all the way to the back of the pack, you might have to rely on a little bit of luck to get away with the incidents that might happen during the race.
Still following along with Matt Taylor for his first lap here, and as you can see, trying to utilize those second and third lanes, in particular in turns 3 and 4. The first time around, a 22.2. Decent start. The quickest times in practice were 22 flats. Quickest overall, Alexis Newsom's 22.069. Followed by Robert Malechka III's 22.096. And Trevor Malone's 21.131. The fastest laps in qualifying at the moment are in that 22.1 range at the moment. Can Taylor break his way through to that range? No, he is about half a tenth off his first time. So it looks like at the very least, these drivers need to set their fastest lap among the first of the two based on that tire wear and the amount of momentum built up depending on how you take that run, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky lap for you to actually get the perfect 22 low and nearly 22 flat in this track, because it is not easy. Especially the second lap, the car gets a little bit brushed and can get slightly loose during the mid-apex going through 1 and 2. So you have to be very mindful of how you prepare the car going to the turn, and that can basically cost you maybe a half a tenth or half a second right here and there. So that's why qualifying, I think, is very key here.
One thing to note when it comes to our competitors tonight, Craig Forsyth had his first avoidable contact on the season, will have to serve an ELL for this race tonight. As well, there was a second avoidable contact for the last time out at Indianapolis for Miguel Hagstrom. As a result, for drivers who reached that mark while having an average incident of low 3.96 as an EOL and a championship reduction. Matt Houston also ends up having an EOL penalty and minus 10 championship points entering today's action. So a couple competitors will have to start on the back foot. Barrett Rolfe, not with the best of qualifying runs after his victory at Indianapolis. He had limited experience, very limited experience, heading into New Hampshire and spent a lot of the week trying to find the nuances. While Alexis Newsom told me before tonight's race that for her, she hadn't raced at this track before and found the line to be very weird. So some of these competitors, for the first time in some cases, racing here.
Yeah, because it is not a track that is usual for the Indy cars, whether it's the DW12 or the IR18. And in the IR18, I think they even drove it in the Open Series, but it is not the easy track for you to handle it properly. So imagine a lot of DW12 where you have no in-car adjustments like you have in the IR18, right?
And Newsom hits the wall. Newsom actually set the pole time the first time around with the 22.134. The second lap, of course, invalidated, but what a flyer for the first lap. Keep in mind, Barrett Rolfe, Alexis Newsom, Robert Malechka III have all one thing in common. They all debuted in the Lionheart IndyCar Series as well, Lorenzo, at Silverstone this past week.
Yeah, a very tricky race for some of the drivers, and we saw probably one of the craziest finishes between Joshua Chin and Adam Blocker, and some of these drivers actually had some solid results in there, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do in the remainder of the season.
Disastrous qualifying run for Robert Malechka III. The reason he doesn't have a time, he hit the wall coming out of turn 2 on his first lap, just spun off the pit lane, trying to come out for his second. He will not put in a time. One of the best qualifiers all season in this series will not have the opportunity to try and add to his 3 poles. Instead, for Alexis Newsom, it will be the second time getting a pole. Let's take a look at your starting grid presented by Butt Kicker. Alexis Newsom puts up a 22.134, the quickest time by a few 100ths of a second over Adrenaline Motorsports driver Chris Stouffer. Trevor Malone, one of the quickest drivers in practice, carried that speed over to qualifying with the 22.182, third on the board in qualifying. Tony Chowan in the championship fight starts in 4th with a lot of preparation into qualifying. Joe Branch and George Enzotto round out the top 6. Alexander Van de Sant starts in 7th today with Matt Taylor in 8th. Matt Wagner and Nick DeGroot round out your top 10. Chris Fowler and Barrett Rolfe with an up-and-down qualifying performance tied their exact time with the 22.329. They round out row 6. Tyler Graff will start alongside Dean Mall in the Synergy Motorsports Blue Machine, with Brian Beard making an appearance tonight in 15th. Luis Gonzalez Nunez will drive from 16th position, with Christopher Kresge in 17th. Alex Gouillon is in 18th among the last of the drivers to set a time. That final driver was Paul Jenkins with a 23 flat. After incidents in qualifying, Robert Malechka III will have a challenge on his hands from 20th position, with AJ Musselman and Jeff Young in 21st, 22nd positions respectively. Greg Forsythe, expecting EOL penalty for his side of things, will start 23rd overall, with Matt Houston also in EOL from the 24th spot. Vern Hawkins III, Charles Teed, Mike Rigney round out the 27 drivers who make Hampshire 175, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. A very competitive field of drivers are getting all set to go here from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, the Magic Mile. And boy, will this be a magical race tonight to see which drivers can tame this very difficult short track. Let's take the opportunity to look at some of your featured onboard cameras for tonight. Craig Forsythe will have the SimSnap Photography onboard camera. SimSnap Photography, your iRacing photography specialist. Visit simsnap.com. With the HyperX on board, it's Mike Rigney. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Tonight, Chris Fowler will have the Espo Designs on board. Espo Designs, get yourself a racing identity. And with the Graphics Esports onboard camera, it's George Enzotto. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com. Let's look at your featured onboard cameras for tonight for the Lionheart Speedway Series from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And boy, do we have a show on the line. It's going to be interesting to see which drivers come up on top here at the Magic Mile. Our competitors are just about set to go for tonight's action. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the Espo Designs New Hampshire 175, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. It's underway from New Hampshire. And Alexis Newsom already single file as they fight side by side for second on back. Several drivers scattering near 3 wide to the back straightaway.
Yeah, nice jump from Alexis Newsom to try to break away as best as she can from that pack. And Stouffer's now catching up, but everybody battling and going nearly 3 wide. But that's some really good hard racing right there as we go to lap number 2.
And you see Newsom trying to utilize as high of a line as she can there. Chris Stouffer nearly getting to the back end of Newsom there. That checkup loses them a little bit of ground as they go all the way nearly to the wall here. Speaking of nearly to the wall, how about side by side? Nearly to the outside lane is Enzono to go up 1 position to start. And keep in mind that top line was expected, Lorenzo, tonight by some competitors to come in, especially on the long run. So watch for competitors to try and get to the outside in some cases here, especially for corner exit.
Yeah, because you're not only breaking away from the draft, right, Justin? You want to try to maximize your run into the front straight or whether the back straight. So sometimes that does work and does work really well, especially with guys going to the inside, brushing up those tires. So if we see that, don't go surprising, as the top line might be the best line as we go through the race.
On some of the drivers who gained a lot of positions off the jump. Robert Muchka the third, already up 2 spots. Vern Hawkins the third, 5. Rickney up 6. We take a look at the battle among the top 10. Chris Fowler, Victor Groot among the drivers in this train, with Matt Wagner in front as well. And you can see just how difficult it is to try and set up a move. It takes a lot of rhythm to prepare yourself to make these corners. At the same time as well, Lorenzo, you've got to be careful. You slam the wall. With this setup, drivers have described where 1 tap to the wall can cost you 0.2 of a second in pace.
Yeah, I think the individual who actually found out the worst was actually Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who's already in the pit lane, so we got our first casualty off the race.
I believe he may have had technical issues over the radio. He was calling, or sorry, or that machine, that car has already lost some of its wings, unfortunately. Meanwhile, looking to make some bold moves to the side-by-side, you see is Robert Malechka III alongside Christopher Kresge. This is for 17th position. Malechka III trying to use the bottom line. Not able to do so in that group as we take a look at the number 8 machine, Matt Taylor up front.
And what a race that Matt Taylor had in Indianapolis 500 that we actually had, right? Had a good promising result at the one point of the race, fighting for top 5, dipped back a little bit because of the strategies, but managed to grab a top 10. And that top 10 for him actually was enough for actually to go up a few spots in the championship. Actually 1 spot and steal Alex Vandersand's the 5th position, now P4 in the standings.
And a bit of a bobble there we just seen from one car. That was Van de Sande, who ended up having a bit of a moment, trying to battle side by side with Joe Branch, able to take advantage. Matt Taylor.
Yeah, I'm looking at, they actually touched nail. They actually avoided touching one another, but it was enough time for him to back out of the line and let Matt Taylor go by and claim his position.
Very dicey among some of these competitors, all while Alexis Newsom, Chris Stouffer try and break away from the rest of the pack. These two have been running 22.8s. Everyone else, 22.9s or lower across the board. Been impressive to say the very least so far for Newsom. And keep in mind, Alexis Newsom sim crashed at Indianapolis, costing Alexis a lot of positions and a lap in that race. So trying to put on a good recovery drive to gain some points back this race.
Yeah, a little bit of a revenge drive for Newsom. She was coming into the 500, 8 points leader in the standings, and the sim issue was enough for her to. And what's most heartbreaking was actually on her pit stop. So she did a pit stop, and the sim decided to stop. So it was very heartbreaking for her. But she's a very capable driver, one of the fewest drivers that has multiple wins in the Lionheart series. So let's see how it goes.
Oh, look at this. Christopher Kresge has had a problem down the back straightaway, got sandwiched by Craig Forsyth. That's why he's taking the road course in turns 3 and 4. Let's take a look at the RaceSpotTV replay, and you'll see exactly what we're referring to. Kresge gets the run, Forsyth pushes up. Well, there was a little space to the right as well there.
Maybe a little bit of confusion as maybe Kresge went down to his line a little bit lower than usual. and just merge into Foresight's line as well, and does cause the crash. So possible race incident right there, a little bit of miscalculation from both.
And that hard contact now makes it 3 drivers already down the pit lane. Greg Forsyth has kept on moving. Here's the view from AJ Musselman, who had to dodge his way to the left side down the backstretch, as well as several others snaking.
Van Sand.
Meanwhile, yes indeed, in live action just now, Alexander Van de Sand just had an incident. He has now brought out our first caution. And remember that first line we talked about around the track. There is a little bit of a difference in banking here. At that part of the speedway, he clipped it, and that spun him around.
Spun around, but fortunately, no crash into the inside barrier or the outside barrier whatsoever. You're going to see him downshifting. You're going to try to downshift to 5th, but the car just decided to step out of the way. Not completely natural because of the low banking. And nothing that could Van der Sand do there. Just lose the car and spin into the grass.
Back to 24th position now as a result, and this is a tricky spot since fuel mileage expected to be about 50 laps, and it's a split call. Newsom stays out, Stouffer comes in with Malone, Tony Schowen, Joe Branch, Nick DeGroot, Barrett Rolfe, Brian Beard, and many more coming down. About 2/3 of the field electing to come down at this point of the race. Keep in mind, we're still outside the projected first window to make it on one less stop.
That is an interesting line. I think someone missed the pit lane right there. I think that was Joe Branch missing slightly the pit lane. They might lose a few tenths of a second, but not enough maybe to lose the position to Nick DeGroot.
Of the drivers who stay out, it's Newsom, Anzaldo, Taylor, Wagner, Fowler, Dean Mull, Ralph, Jenkins, Rigney. So 9 drivers elect to stay out here.
You know what that means with this, Justin?
What does that mean, Lorenzo?
That butt kicker is long gone.
Oh, yes. That's unfortunate, yes. You're right about that. Unfortunate in that case as well. I know a few drivers were looking forward to trying to race for it. It was a great start, though. A few drivers were able to make some moves as Anzaldo now pulls towards the left side of the racetrack.
Yeah.
They have an interesting scenario right there. Either way, Anzaldo having an interesting season so far in that regard for Anzaldo's campaign. Has showed some great speed at Indianapolis. Was willing to roll the dice on strategy and almost made some calls work. Depending on how the cautions flew, it could have been Anzaldo's race. He's 14th in standings after that event as well.
That was a really good race from Anzaldo. Just the first car outside the top 10, but I'm just taking a look over. He actually led 11 laps in the 500 just because of that odd strategy was actually trying to pull off and going nearly to the full mileage of the DW12. So unfortunately it didn't pay out for him, but it shows that Anzaldo's strategy with a few tweaks here and there might have been on point against some of the top drivers in this championship.
See if we get the Wendigo signal this time by. Again, it's Alexis Newsom in the lead. Mike Rickney's electing to come down this time by, as the lights indeed are out. So that leaves 8 drivers staying out for this respective window. And this is the roll of the dice drivers talked about for these types of races where you hope the caution flags fall the way you hope they go to make your strategy work. And it's played dividends in a lot of cases. For some of these drivers, this is up to 11 positions in a couple of cases gained if this works out.
Yeah, but now we are facing now a little bit of an interesting scenario because we actually got a considerable lengthy run under green. So the tires are brushed up a little bit. There will be some wear in the tires. How the new tire guys will negotiate with the old tire guys, we'll see in about 2 to 3 seconds.
Already all the way up to the wall are the race leaders. The iRacing pace car is off. A great launch by Newsom, not so much from Anzaldo. We're back on our way on lap number 20. And already several drivers trying to go side by side. A dive by Chris Fowler among the drivers who stayed out. Also, we had Tyler Graff peeking underneath Dean Mull to try and build up a run. Right now, those older tires sticking out very well so far, but again, the question's going to be, how do they hold up? A couple competitors mentioned that those tires can make it easier for a couple competitors to pass. It also helps that the drivers on fresher tires are fighting each other still. And among the drivers holding things up, Lorenzo, is Craig Forsyth, who, remember, had that contact, and we talked about if you hit the wall or you make that contact, you are slower, and it's holding up some drivers here.
Yeah, he's holding up Trevor Malone at this current moment, and he's dropping back like a rock. Malone, I think we started 11th or 12th in this restart. Now drop back all the way down into P16.
Well, much because the third able to clear on by. Keep in mind, Forsyth did pit under green, lost 2 laps, and that's also the risk, too, for the competitors who stayed out. If we get a lone run, as a couple drivers expected the possibility of doing so at this track, you end up being pinned. It's a major risk for those 8 drivers who stayed out.
It is a big risk, but so far it's paying off for them because the first car in the new tires is Christopher. He just got into Tyler Graff's inside, as now you see in the frame.
And the reason these two are side by side, Paul Jenkins just about squeezed Tyler Graff into the wall down the front stretch. Just about got into his front wing and checked everybody up on the fresher tires. So Jenkins is not making things easy for these competitors, now side by side for 8th spot.
Then to seal the deal, though, as he has the high line, and the high line gives a little bit of more grip. Yes, he does.
Now it's the big question of, can he be the first of the drivers to now pass by Paul Jenkins here? Tyler Graff already getting shuffled by a couple competitors, still for not able to build the run. All with Tony Schowen is trying to get the run now on Graff. And does. There's the grip levels coming in, but Tyler Graff with the throttle all the way nearly to the wall. He really didn't want to give up that spot, just about squeezed himself into the fence.
Really close. I could have swore there would have been a major crash between Cowan and the Graff tire.
And as a result, Graff has already fallen to 12th position. Just up the road, keep in mind, Christopher has passed Paul Jenkins as well. Barrett Rolfe also trying to take the peak right there. Let's take a look at the replay, and things continue to shuffle about amongst these competitors. Here's what exactly happened with how close it got.
Had Schowen gone farther into the outside line, there would have been a sure crash. But Schowen just, in the nick of time, actually went to the inside line and avoided what would have been a race-defining crash.
And it was absolutely close, just like this battle is getting here on screen. This is for 5th. Now we're trying to utilize the 3rd line compared to the 2nd line by Christopher. Able to find a hole this time, though. Dean Moe giving him a little bit of space in the corner exit. There's the dive back for Stouffer near contact.
We'll have to lift up the guys. I might have to lift up again. And nearly a crash with Fowler right there.
Drivers talked about the balance of these cars can be fairly tight off turn 2. It's so critical to make sure you're careful in the throttle there. We've seen the ramifications come into play a couple times already with the incidents, with the near close calls. Let's take along from the Espo Designs on board. Chris Fowler continuing to defend for 5th. He has to come in about 20 laps. These drivers expected to make it 50 laps on fuel, give or take, in green flag conditions. Some predicted they can go as long as 53.
And what is impressive right now is that none of the new tire drivers are actually within the top 5. Everybody on no tires is actually on top 5. But Stouffer, I think, is overworking their car, in my opinion, a little bit. Because if he overworks that car, his tires might be nearly equal to what Fowler is right now, as he finally makes the move on the inside.
Does he, though? No, Stouffer can't get the full rotation there, and it's starting to get difficult to make passes. These drivers on that pit stop strategy from the caution flag. They now have had the tires rubber in, and the times are starting to equalize a little bit for now amongst the field to the 23 1s and 2s for some competitors. Keep in mind the drivers in clean air who stayed out, among them Newsom and Taylor, are still in the 22-second bracket.
Yeah, some would say that clean air over here is life, so that's why Taylor and Newsom are doing so well with their tires and their times right now.
Keep in mind when it comes to Christopher on his season, some interesting moments, some good runs. He lost 3 positions in the standings after the run at Indy, finishing 26th position, DNFing 133 laps into that event. He's looking for a nice put-me-up as these race leaders are starting to spread out. Newsom has broken the toe, already up 1.7 seconds to Taylor.
And Stouffer trying again. I think this is the 3rd time that he's actually trying that inside line. But finally might have a run on the inside again of 3 and 4. This is something he didn't have on the previous runs, but well defended by Fowler right now.
Stouffer losing a bit of momentum once again, and these drivers are still holding on firm with those older tires. Keep in mind, George Zotto is now leading this grouping of cars and starting to struggle. Tony Schowen, meanwhile, he's still a -5 as a result of the strategy call. Still needs to find a way to get around Paul Jenkins and Dean Mull to catch up to the others on the net strategy.
Yeah, and it's kind of reached a plateau in terms of a tire buildup. I think the only way you can make an overtake work is either full come into the inside line and have the other car kind of let you go by, or have a really good high line run and then steal the deal. Because, like I said, once we go into the run, the high side line might be the best line for you to make the overtakes, especially with worn out tires. But now Stouffer might have that run because it's side by side.
Can he fully make it work? Again, the strong defense from Chris Fowler. And again, Fowler keeping it side by side, not wanting to give up this spot. They are now approaching within 10-15 laps of their estimated window for them to have to come down for fuel. So, a couple of these competitors may need the caution to be able to get themselves equalized out. We are in that first window where drivers, if we get a caution now, would be able to take one less pit stop overall as a group. Speaking of groups, see how things fare out. Line battle amongst themselves. As this all shapes out, let's take a look at your driver profile, presented by Sim Experience for Matt Taylor. 10 starts this season with 9 top 10s on the campaign, one of them seeing a pole. He's finished inside the top 5 3 times. First start coming, start of the season, Twin Rim Motegi, a best finish in this series of just 2nd so far, Lorenzo. He's come close so many times. He is a strong driver in all the classes he runs in Lionheart.
Yeah, whether it's in here, whether it's in the IR-18, he's a very complete driver and someone we should look for in future seasons. And unfortunately, with his run in the 500 and the strong run of some other drivers in that 500 race as well, he dropped a few spots, dropped 2 spots in the power rankings. The HyperX power rankings dropped all the way back to 6, but still within that top 10.
Don't forget, he is 2nd in the Lionheart Retro Series point standings, too. He's in the conversation for multiple different series to battle for a championship as a driver is around. It's Tyra Graf. Caution is out for the 2nd time tonight. And Graf was starting to have some loose moments we were hearing, and now his car is severely damaged. Taking a look at the replay, things were not looking pretty right before that incident. It's a bit of help, though. You'll see in turn 4 from the 97.
Yeah, Vandersand's car just understeered into him on the 8 out of 4. Slight touch on the back left of Tyler Graf and thus spinning him around. Now you can see Mike Rigney's perspective on the crash. As you can see, Graf's car spinning around. He kind of touches the nose of Graf's car, Rigney, but still somehow, some way, I don't think there's major damage on Graf's car other than maybe some bent wings, and that's pretty much fixable. You wouldn't lose a lap for that.
Major spin, a bit of wall contact we've seen at the very edge there, and guess who this helps? Just about the entire field ends up coming down to pit, except for Nick DeGroot. Keep in mind, this equalizes all the strategies, Lorenzo, as this is within those first pit stop windows.
Yeah, not only DeGroot, but also Matt Houston staying in track as well. As you can see, the run off the pit lane, nearly 3 wide on the exit of the pit lane.
First driver off the pit lane was Newsom, followed by Wagner, Taylor, and Zoldo. Fowler, Stouffer, Jenkins, Mull, rounding out that race off the line. Of note this time, 2 drivers did stay out. Along with the crew, it was Matt Houston, who is known for rolling the dice. His drivers are 29 coming to 30 and 27 coming to 28 laps, respectively, on their stints. See if either of them elect this time. No, they will. Well, Matt Houston will come down. Barrett Rolfe, meanwhile, it looks like may have gotten a speeding ticket potentially. He's had to let drivers go here.
Interesting call from DeGroot right here, as he will have a lighter car face to the wind, so he might be able to defend a few spots from Newsom, Wagner, and Taylor when we got the green flag going for our second restart of this race. But as we mentioned, that the clean air is good for people, and even with some worn out tires and things like that, that might work for DeGroot on the restart.
Keep in mind, today's weather, let's take the chance to look towards that, is mostly cloudy, which means the track temperature could fluctuate a fair bit, with the in-sim time being about 3:31 at the moment. It's 24 degrees air temp Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius for the track temperature at the moment. Winds currently gusting at 5 kilometers per hour, so it's fairly cool out there. It could get cooler if a big cloud comes over the racetrack.
Yeah, it might be. I think it will get cooler as we go maybe an hour or two in this race, because we're going to be reaching like 5 p.m. in the sim. I'm going to say 5 a.m., but it's 5 p.m. in the sim, and that is reaching nearly the night levels where you might see 26 degrees Celsius or 27 or something like that, and that affects the tire rubber a little bit. It eases the tire rubber, but at the same time, fuel consumption might go up a little bit, and also the strategies might differ because how the car handles under cold weather.
It's all going to be interesting with how the temperatures fare out and the drivers react to it. I'm curious how they react to DeGroot staying out on the racetrack, rolling the dice. He's made 7 starts this season, and this will add to what has been a sizable amount of laps led. He had 109 coming into tonight. He goes over 110 with this call. Green flag's back out. Teammate Alexis Newsom right behind with Wagner in third. And a near pinch to the wall right there as Zoldo and Fowler nearly make wheel-to-wheel contact.
And nearly got really close on Zoldo and Fowler right there. Stouffer had to check up a little bit before to avoid a possible crash, and I think we see a little bit of a crash between Stouffer and Fowler right there.
And he sees those drivers starting to bobble around. Stouffer indeed got into the back end of Chris Fowler. That caused all the checking up, and now it is tight for the battle for 6th position. They've already lost more than a second.
Fowler
and 2 more into the inside wall. 2 more crash to the inside. It's Barrett Rolfe, Jeff Gion, who have both slammed hard into the guardrail. No caution. We currently stay green as they get rolling.
That's impressive because they might reach them right on the back stretch as Alexis Newsom does the fastest lap. Somehow Fowler's car was a little bit loose after the contact, but managed to retain his position so far. So I think we see the biggest attrition in a restart in this race so far. The first big attrition in this race.
Both those drivers involved in the incident have made their way to the pit lane, and a new leader, Alexis Newsom, we've seen making a swap with the teammate, Nick DeGroot. Here's the reason for the contact. And it looked like one driver may have gone into the left rear of another. Let's see.
It does look like our first caution of the race. Not the first caution, but the foresight and also Kresge incident a little bit.
Looked like a tough incident either way for those drivers. That will have championship ramifications though, Lorenzo. Barrett up there in the points after one driver just got a little bit loose. That is going to be costly for Barrett.
It's going to be really costly for Barrett. And again, with 8 rounds to go in this championship, every point matters, especially those double points at Fontana and the Auto Club Speedway, which is our last of the Triple Crown event. So positioning in the standings is going to be utmostly important if you're trying to fight for the championship.
And that means Tony Schowen has the extra pressure of trying to gain as many points as he can here tonight. He wanted to keep the car clean. Asked him about the championship fight. He basically said it comes down to minimizing mistakes and having consistent top 5 finishes. Right now, he's in a bit of a dogfight with that checkup there. You can tell as well, Malechka the third really wants to go, Lorenzo, too. That's not helping things.
Not helping one bit. And now Malechka trying the inside line once again. And Malechka, I think, like we said, needs a really good race so far to actually get back within some contendable standings. Now Schowen goes to the inside, a very aggressive move.
And there's that difficulty of being able to pass to the bottom of the racetrack here. And why it's so important to get up to the top here. It's similar to what we see at Phoenix. Drivers, if they can get side by side like that into the entry in particular, 9 times out of 10 we see, unless there's the grip difference, end up having to utilize the top.
Also, that low line, it can work, but the problem is you don't have the in-car adjustments, right? So without any in-car adjustments to make sure the weight jackers are in the proper position for you to capitalize your run, it makes it a little bit difficult just to rely on accelerator and the throttling and brake right there.
Bit of a push up the track, just seen from Joe Branch. That forces 2 wide, couple rows deep now. Malechka the third trying to clear by Brian Beard. Can't do so off of turn 4. Tony Schowen now stuck side by side 2 with Branch as a result. As he goes for an air lunge, couple of these drivers. Will Schowen get some leeway from Branch? Yes, Branch struggling on corner exit at the moment.
Somehow, some way, Branch struggling right there, but still within touch of everybody else and still within a respectable position in this race so far. So not everything has been decided so far yet, and we are soon creeping into our halfway point of the race. So despite 2 cautions, everything looks like hard racing, but fair racing so far.
This continues to all fair out. Keep in mind, there is one driver who needs a caution, and quickly, that is DeGroot. Make sure that he doesn't fall 2 laps down. He is still holding on to second. Place has already lost 1.6 seconds to your race leader. Keep in mind the checkups off the start, too, caused that major checkup of 1 second, including that side-by-side with Stouffer and Fowler.
Yeah, talking about Stouffer and Fowler, Stouffer kind of did what would be a late move on the outside line after trying to seal the deal, but Fowler managed to work the draft and get back at Stouffer. You can see how close you're running into the outside wall.
You definitely don't want to smack the wall here, and a bit of a smack there up the track. And Fowler able to keep on rolling, loses 1 position. Taking advantage of this, Paul Jenkins, who nearly gets squeezed into the wall now.
Wow.
They are playing dangerously with some of these moves here. We know how important that top line is, but you also don't want to squeeze your opponents by accident into the wall.
Yeah, that could have ended up in tragedy right there. And I think I heard on radio that Fowler wasn't appreciative of the move done by Stouffer of shoving him off into the entry of turn number 3. Now everything kind of clustered up in between Fowler, Mole, Jenkins, and also Malechka in the fray as well.
Malechka the third still wants to make up for the mistake in qualifying. Jenkins the third pushed up the track in turn 4. Malechka the third be able to fully clear on by for 9th position to make it a plus 11. No. And keep in mind, some of these drivers have to consider this. The strategy calls, the rolling of the dice, all can come into play, and some of these drivers trying to make up for that. Remember, Stouffer in particular got involved with an incident in Indy when he was in a great position strategy-wise to be able to try and win that respective race with the double points. That cost him so many points in that race. So that is that in the back of your mind, Lorenzo, in this type of race, knowing you have to make moves such as this one we see to be able to slice your way through the pack?
Yes, absolutely. You're going to have to make up every single lost point that you had. I think he had a real late race incident. I think it was the race instantly yellow flag that gave Barrett Grove the win at the 500. So every point he can get right now will be key for him to move up within the standings. And this is a driver that we're talking about standings. He's right on that top 5. He lost 3 positions just because of that incident in the 500.
Right now, he is still trying to find a way around Enzotto, and it's going to be critical because everyone else has already broken away by a 1.5 seconds plus. In other words, Stouffer needs to find a way around Enzotto to claw his way forward. Meanwhile, Malechka the third continues to try and claw his way forward. Malechka the third's been impressive this season. Sung his praises earlier with some of the performances. He's talked about made the debut in Lionheart IndyCar Series competition. A lot of experience for Malechka the third when it comes to being able to make smart strategy calls and have that raw pace.
Yeah, talking about, I think one of the aspects might be the, I'm trying to remember, I think it is the Michigan race that he won, right, Justin? Where we had that fight for the field, and he was right on the pace to win that, and he actually did, just because of the fuel saving that him and some other drivers actually put up. So just because of that, it shows that his skills right there is actually something to consider in this championship.
Downside for his teammate Nick DeGroot we just seen. Strategy just went bust, had to come into the pit lane. 55 laps was his total overall around the track, and already DeGroot will lose at least a lap. And that gets us towards the conversation again about that pit exit for tonight. These drivers, if this continues to go green, have to think about that. It is very slippery, and it's close to be able to hit that inside wall, especially in turn 2 when you're trying to run on that apron.
Yeah, it's kind of like ice, but with grip. If I have to put it, try to put it in the best summarization. Oh, and we have a crash. Oh, Malechka involved.
And the caution is indeed out. The battle for what was 5th position boiled over. And remember Enzotto trying to hold on to that position right before the pit stops? Well, Chris Stouffer tried to go for the move, nearly got clear, and then disaster.
Wow, that is very impressive. And unfortunate to see that Enzotto actually got his teammate in the factory back of Malechka. You can see Malechka, it had it been about a 1/10 of a second closer to those two guys, he would have been clear. He would have actually saved that car and avoid the incident. So it's really unfortunate to see what has transitioned from Enzotto and Stouffer.
It comes with us rolling towards 100 to go, and Enzotto getting the worst of it with a hard slam into the tires, the inside of the back straightaway. But everyone has come down. The one driver who did not want to see that and wanted to stay green was DeGroot. Matt Houston staying out, trying to get some points.
Again, actually, he did that. It's the second time in this race I think Matt Houston put a strategy, not enough strategy, in the field. So it's an interesting one.
Mine, it's the similar roll of the dice as Nick DeGroot just tried to roll. It didn't play out well for him at all. Again, Newsom the first off the pit lane, Wagner, Taylor, Stouffer, Jenkins, Mull, Beard. So that race off the line was Shawan and Branch, rounding out the current top 10. See if Houston elects to duck down. Last time with this strategy, this time not going in. But on the bright side, some competitors' foresight having to come in. This does not help DeGroot, though, because guess what? If he pits, DeGroot could have tried to take the wave.
Yeah, but I think fortunately for DeGroot is the fact that he's on 4 laps into his stint, so he's not on 30 or 40 laps as he was on when he actually stayed on the track. So he's right in front of Matt Houston right now. This is the only car he's actually in front. So he has good chances of trying to get his lap back once the green flag actually is up again.
Curious thing with these drivers expecting the one to go potentially this time by is if Houston, now with the confirmed lead lap, does indeed try this roll of the dice and hopes for the caution within 25 laps for this to play out. That answer right here, and indeed take the risk and possibilities of pitting with the closed lane here with the 2 to go signal. He sacrifices the lead now with the lead lap. Alexis Newsom cycles to the point with the lights going out into DeGroot's race. He is helped, although he loses the track position now in 21st position. Reset your top 10. It's Newsom, Wagner, Taylor, Stouffer, Jenkins and Mull, Beard and Shawan, Branch and Rigney. Top 10 of note for Mike Rigney. He's done a great job, Lorenzo, from recovering from having to start at the back of the field. Up 17 positions.
Yeah, what a race from Rigney over here as we saw him getting nearly shoved into the wall and had to cycle back and try to regain his rhythm in this race. And a driver that we know has a lot of experience in this one, in this car. So let's see where he ends up in the next few laps.
97 to go when the green flag waves this time by. Already quickly approaching the halfway mark of this race here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Pace car is off. Newsom is off. Another great launch from Alexis Newsom. She's had the pace throughout the night so far, looking very dominant. And tries to utilize that clean air as several drivers make their way to the second and third lines. One of those drivers, Joe Branch, taking a peek towards turn 3 there after a bit of the move. All the race leaders, though, trying the differences of lines to get that clean air. Taylor in particular, with the best run coming off the corner. Elects not to send it.
Yeah, nice hole from Wagner right now, right there.
Just about to say, he seems like he's playing this methodically, waiting patiently for the right time to make the move.
Because I think if we have to make another analogy, it looks like that New Hampshire, to try to make moves, is a little bit of a chess game. You have to play patiently and hope you actually get some good runs and find that opening eventually. So it's interesting as we see, I think, Tony Shawan going on the inside of Brian Beard.
That lost him a little bit of time with that side-by-side there, already nearly a full second behind. Next car in front, Dean Mull with that move. New fastest lap. Newsom another 22.6. Being recorded at the head of the field. All while moves are being attempted. Taylor wants to go. That time he couldn't clear by Wagner.
And Justin, really quickly, can we actually begin like a campaign or something of the nature where Alexis Newsom actually she's a really good driver, don't get us wrong, but she's excelling in short ovals because she won at the Milwaukee Mile, and of course she won at Texas as well, but Milwaukee she didn't won it, and she won it, I think, very well right there.
Yeah, Newsom's been incredible throughout this entire championship. this season pace, with being able to have the confidence. And in a lot of cases, the consistency didn't have the luck, of course, that Indianapolis has talked about, but exactly the night Alexis was looking for with a chance to try and match Robert Wunschke III's 3 victories. Side by side, you see on screen, building up meanwhile, that's Joe Branch, Mike Rigney, trying to fight alongside for 9th position. The tough part I've noticed here is Joe Branch seems to struggle a little bit on corner exit right now, Lorenzo. He's been pushing off the corners. It's not been easy to pass him, though, because of that difficulty here at New Hampshire to get that run. And looking at the replay, meanwhile, Robert Wunschke III, who had side pod damage from the last incident, added to it.
Yeah, that's probably a race ending incident for Malecka, and that's really unfortunate for the multiple time winner. Only one of the 2 drivers actually won multiple times here in the Speedway series.
Keep in mind, the race lead is already separated 1.5 seconds, and you have to wonder, what's that like behind the cockpit, knowing you've got a driver who's hitting consistent lap times and are nearly matching your pace, but you're that little extra bit quicker potentially if you can get the run?
It's a bit frustrating, you know that you have the pace, and you can try to maybe match what Alexis has been doing lap by lap in this track. So trying to find that opening, it's a little bit of a work. You have to put the pressure on your opponent every single lap, and then once you do that, you have to capitalize on that. But the problem is, you have Stouffer and Jenkins so close that it's hard to find that opening.
Just past halfway at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, watching RaceSpotTV and ESTV with live coverage of the Lionheart Speedway Series in the Espo Designs New Hampshire 175, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel.
Avoidances,
Stay low. He's high, stay low.
daring passes,
Oh, you're gonna get it.
silly jumps,
Oh my god, a drive-through.
the thrill of victory,
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
and the occasional mishap.
My sim crashed.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
Under caution, now at New Hampshire Motor Speedway for live coverage of the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by the DMLC Racing Channel and the Espo Designs New Hampshire 175. Justin Prince, Lorenzo Bonder, Arjuna Kankapani in the producer's seat for tonight's cameras and action. It is going to be interesting now after Joe Branch was involved with an incident down the back straightaway, bringing us under caution and just splitting the strategy in this field with 79 laps to go.
And so we see a good portion of the cars going to the pit lane. Might not, a little bit less than half of the cars going into the pit lane for its service. But it was a very unfortunate incident what happened to Branch. It was one of those incidents that is so millimetric that it feels heartbreaking for the individual, as we're now going to see on the replay what has happened between him and Rigney.
And he grinds up against the wall with hard contact. Got some help from Rigney indeed. You've seen in that 0-0 from behind. They were getting very dicey for this position right before this contact right there.
Yeah, Rigney went for the move on the inside during the run and miscalculated the distance he had to the back wing and diffuser of Joe Branch, and thus caused the contact with Branch and launched him into the Arco barrier, into the wall barrier, the safe barrier, and into the fence as well.
Rigney now rolls his way into the pit lane the second time around as well. That will drop him to the back of the field as a result of the incident. But for those just tuning in, it's been a dominant performance for Alexis Newsome, who has been able to lead a majority of the laps tonight. Wagner and Taylor second and third. Stouffer with a good night in fourth right now. Paul Jenkins with all these strategy calls and him staying out several times. It's worked out well for Jenkins. He's up 14 spots inside the top 5.
Yeah, really good call from Jenkins, and he was actually one of these guys that was clawing within the top 10, made some moves in the start of the race. He worked the strategy towards his performance and try to get some really good results in the restarts. But I think another driver that impressed me quite the most in here has to be actually two drivers. One, Alice Guillon coming from P18 into P9, and the Mulseman, AJ Mulseman, coming from P21 up to P10 right now.
Well, just as you say that, the Muscleman just came into the pit lane, so there goes that.
Yeah, he had to. I cannot compliment drivers and they go into the pit lane. If I compliment drivers, either they crash or they go to the pit lane. The curse of Bonder continues.
It's an interesting one indeed, to say the very least. But to get back to the race itself, what's it going to take to be able to get around Newsome?
All right, I'll be very blunt. The way she's driving a miracle.
Okay. Where do you find that miracle? Strategy calls, trying to find a dive towards the inside to clear on by.
Strategy.
Strategy?
Maybe an undercut strategy or something of the nature. Maybe she stays on track and you go for like a Hail Mary and try to make it on field. Let's see.
We're at 76 laps to go. Half the field pit, half the field stayed out. Newsome leads them to the green flag and another great launch. Oh, wow, they try and shuffle about a little bit. About 5th or 6th on back. A nice solid start. And this gets to the interesting part of the conversation here. When you're in fights like this, you may see drivers utilizing different types of gears, Lorenzo. A couple competitors talked about where some may be utilizing 4th and 5th gears in these corners to get runs, others 5th and 6th gears. That's something to keep an eye for some of these competitors with the side-by-side.
Yeah, because some of these drivers are using tips to either fuel save, just don't use the full throttle and fuel save, especially in the backstretch, and use 5th and 4th, maybe going to the turns 4th if you want to try to get, just stick the line in the best you can and use the high revs of the RPM to keep the car in check as well, and then use 5th to get out of it. It's similar to what is done in the IR18, even though we didn't inquire adjustments. So how they actually tackle this around the track is very interesting, to say the very least. Back
of the battle for third, second position between the battle with the mats. Both Matts have been impressive. Matt Wagner having one of his best races of the season, though, we'll say. Once these drivers to the train, he's 13th in the point standings. As we take a look at Chris Stouffer, who's also joined this fight. Can he break up the Matts is the big question and bring the force to the bottom of the racetrack?
Interesting, because we've seen Stouffer try that inside line a few occasions, right? Especially with Fowler, and that wasn't working. I think it only worked once. He sealed the deal temporarily for one back straight, and then Fowler resealed the deal and actually got back his place instead. So he's trying his best, but I think what he's doing right now is just scrubbing tires and taking possible grip that he needs to the end of his stint away from his car.
Back gearbox now of Wagner, and it looks like Chris Stouffer, not wanting to be too patient, will try and make the move on Taylor. A bobble, though, and that's going to give Wagner some breathing space of 0.4 of a second with that move. Just seems Wagner continuing to just find that cleaner pocket rinse that's so critical all the way up nearly to the wall, and this time he got a very great launch. Coming into turn 3, can he clear by fully by the apex? Yes. What a run by Taylor as he parks the bus.
Whew. And Stouffer actually got checked up a little bit. Had to go to the inside. Now, problem is Wagner's now pinched in, and Stouffer finally, because of that pinch, might actually make the move.
Let's also now cue things up for Jenkins to try and make a move on Wagner. Took the peek inside, as now it's the big question mark. Can Taylor close up to Newsom now that he's in the clear? It's the highest he's been all race tonight. Or he picked up 1/10 at the start and finish line last time. Buys the caution flag, waves once again. And it's Tony Shelwyn, the championship points leader. A hard bit of contact, and this, with how things are shaping, has gone upside down for his championship hopes.
That contact with Fowler right there on turn number 1, and it looked odd for me at first glance because both cars had a little bit of an allowance, but it was indeed kind of a late dive from Fowler into turn number 1, and you guys can see it right now. There would have been a little bit of a late dive. He probably would have caused some wheel-to-wheel contact, and Shelwyn just got the short end of the stick.
And Tony talked about how he needed to have a solid race and keep the car clean, put himself into good positioning. And now, championship complexion has really been shooken up. Barrett Rolfe with earlier trouble, 24th position, already out of the race. Tony Shelwyn out of this as well. The team standings are going to be huge too as a result of all this, with 2 adrenaline cars being involved in incidents the past few cautions.
True. Shelwyn get involved into it, branches out of the race, and especially Shelwyn, I think, of everybody else. Well, here's the thing. I think Shelwyn, of course, being the points leader, but the other problem is Branch is 7th in the standings, right? He's just behind his teammate of Chris Stouffer. And if we're trying to grab the race first cars or the factory back right now, Newsom, E1, Malechka is out of the race, and then Zaldo is also out of the race. So I think this is Newsom a race to hard carry the points towards the team if they want to aim for that top spot in the team championship, but also opens up opportunities for race first to close in as well.
We talked about the potential of things heating up with the team championship and how things spread out after Indianapolis. It just got compressed again, and now it gets really intriguing with race first back in the conversation here too, with all things fairing out. Don't forget, Chris Stouffer and his adrenaline machine still in 3rd position, trying to hold on to that spot. Indeed, it's going to be critical for him to try and score strong points now for that team battle as a result of things, with him flying the flag. Coming up to 64 laps to go, this time by here at New Hampshire. And now it's the true test. Can Newsom hold on in front of Taylor Now for this battle for the race lead on this restart coming up next time by.
Gonna be interesting because I think for the first time, in my slightest opinion, she might have drivers where, if we're to judge from practice, and I mean practice pace alone, it's drivers that are within relatively the same pace, because she's been the best in practice, right? And whereas Stouffer and Taylor have been close to one another within the 22.2, so if they keep within the same reasonable margin of Newsom, this could become a very interesting race over here.
And you know what else is also going to be interesting? It's a one-stop for everyone. That's simple enough, right?
Yep.
We're still 10 laps outside the magic number. That drivers, at the very most, can make it on fuel. The drivers who came down this caution are Wagner, Guyon, de Groot. Musselman came down a couple times. Houston came down a couple times. So those drivers you have to keep an eye on if we get a long green flag run here. Those competitors have all rolled the dice to see how things play out here at this point. Now it's the matter of how things fare out up at the front. Newsom in control of the field still. Another great launch from the factory back driver. Gives Newsom a 5-car length advantage and 1 car to the inside wall already. It's Tyler Graf. Another incident for Graf in this race. And we're back under yellow. He may have misjudged the start and had to check up. Let's take a look at the replay. Watch him right here. This costs the stack up.
Yeah, he tried to go for the early launch on Vandersand and also Malone and just couldn't get the run. And it caused a check up. Fowler, nothing could do over there, as you're going to see him touching the back wing and couldn't avoid anything whatsoever on the outside of Graf right there. Real unfortunate.
It didn't look like Fowler lifted in that case, in that situation, trying to gentle to the right. Here's an arrow look once again. And you can see where Graf's seen the potential of them starting to go with Vandersand with a little bobble forward. But a tough break in that case for Graf. And now the strategy gets really intriguing as a result of this here to see how things fare out. Because if you see it becoming cautions, precautions, we may see drivers elect to try and top off. We see anyone go for that call. I believe one. Nick de Groot is rolling the dice here.
Well,
de Groot was towards the back either way, Lorenzo, so why not?
Yeah, why not go for a very, very odd strategy right there and see if it pays off, right? I said if you really want to beat, I think, Newsom in this track, you might have to go for something that is completely unusual, because we haven't seen if Taylor and Stouffer are actually able to match the pace, because we barely actually had a restart in here. But if we can get some green flag runs and see if they actually match the pace, then maybe the scenario can shift a bit. But for now, strategies might be the way to go, or the only way to go to try to get an edge on the factory back driver.
And the clouds are coming over the racetrack too, keep in mind. The in-sim time is already just past 4:08. Looking at those temperatures, the track temperature is starting to dip. It's 34 degrees Celsius now. That's 94 degrees Fahrenheit. We discussed things earlier. That was 7 degrees Fahrenheit higher, a little bit higher Celsius. So those temperatures and grip levels are starting to change for these closing stages too. A lot more grip going to be built up.
Yeah, it isn't a big dip, because last time we saw was around 38 Celsius degrees, right? Because we kind of expected to start going around the 20, 29s, 28s at this point of the race, and then maybe dip all around, kind of plateau around the 25. So it's kind of interesting to see the track's still warm. Of course, it isn't hot, but it's still warm, given at the point of the day in the iRacing service.
Still, this championship fight is going to get hotly contested as one driver does roll the dice here. This time, make it 2. Muscleman Houston come down with the 1 to go signal. They may try something here. That's going to be intriguing with 59 laps. It's still outside the window to make it. But if you get a caution flag, they may be one of the, or 2 of those drivers who try and stay out now.
Yeah, because we saw, I think, this is not the first time we might see Houston pulling these tricks, right, on going to the pit lane or staying out late and trying to retain the lead, or retaining the lead for maybe a lap or 2 and then going back to the pit lane for a short fill. So let's see if this point they actually stay on the track and play with the field and see if they can get more yellow flags as we're about to go for another restart.
Track temp continuing to plummet with these clouds over above the racetrack. 58 laps to go at the stripe. Newsom now to the launch. A little bit earlier this time. Taylor able to keep within pace. We're back on our way from New Hampshire. Things stay nice and tight for 4th on back. Trevor Malone trying to pressurize Jenkins there into the corner, building up a strong run. Having to check up, though, down the middle of the straightaway.
Interesting to see that Newsom kind of already opened up a small gap to Taylor at the restart. 0.3 of a second separating Newsom, Taylor, and Taylor struck. He's working different lines to keep up with the leader of the race, but Malone now I think is the most aggressive driver out of the bunch.
Take a look at your biggest movers and shakers on your pylon. You can see Jenkins among those competitors up 15 positions on the board. Up 16 spots is Vern Hawkins with 3rd, a quiet race. Houston up 10. But look at the front, though. And look at this as well. Some battles starting to shape up with the pace picking up. Taylor with the quickest lap. The times are now into the 22-3s up at the front.
Yeah, we're starting to see the fastest laps going to the 22 lows, really lows, where we saw with the draft and everything going to 22-0 with Newsom and Malechka in the practice service, but that is a whole different scenario because they were on draft. Over here is now a normal pace. Let's see how Taylor works it out, because now we might start to see a different scenario in this race.
Yeah, we're trying to build up a run. This is similar to what Taylor was able to do against Wagner. Try and utilize that higher line, build up some momentum off the corner, down the back straightaway, then be able to dive to the inside, trying to do the same thing within a car length this time by all the way up to the wall, trying to use that little bit of banking there is here as a ramp. 53 to go this time as Taylor continues to try and set things up.
Yeah, I think now it's a mono race between Taylor and Newsom, because Stouffer already dipped back 1 second of both drivers, even though he's doing 22 middles in the same reach of Newsom and Taylor. Both Taylor and Newsom are the only guys within the 2-5s going to force.
Right now they've already pulled away by 1.1, nearly 1.2 seconds. Once these two are the top drivers in Lionheart competition, especially in the Speedway side, continuing to fight as hard as they can. Keep in mind, we've seen earlier with our driver profile, Taylor has not found his way to victory lane yet in this series. Is hungry to do so, to say the very least. After all, leads the series in top 10s. Behind him, Chris Fowler trying to find a way around Trevor Malone. Don't forget Alexander Vandersen among those competitors who have stayed out the past couple caution flags. Things are about to get interesting for those who have stayed out the past few times. A few drivers are now reaching more than 50 laps on the fuel as Vandersen getting into a tough situation.
Yeah, I think he actually broke his car a little bit. Not broke, but braked his car a little bit because he thought that the Malone and Fowler were going to get together, and he would have to dodge out of the way, but that didn't happen.
Indeed, quick reaction in that case lost him a little bit of time, but to get back to the point, we may see drivers having to pit here soon. because yeah, that's going to be critical, especially for drivers like Newsom, Taylor, Stouffer, Jenkins. They all have to come in fairly soon, within the next 10 possibly.
And that makes Chris Fowler the leader of this race after everything he has been through, which is, for me, surprises the only driver with 32 laps and the first within those odd strategies that is being played out here in this race. The other driver right behind, which is the second one in this, Ryan Beard, currently sitting in P8.
Rehearsal is going to be very important for some of these drivers now to be able to get some of these moves done, as well as the timing of the stops. Fowler, he's been trying to set this move up for a little while on Jenkins, and Jenkins nearly knocked the wall down. But the race first driver needed. Chris Fowler able to clear on by. Jenkins trying to defend back for 4th position with 45 laps to go. Trying to utilize the second line. Trying to keep his foot in it as Fowler's able to clear on by and move into 4th. The downside is they've lost the toe to Stouffer.
Yeah, but I think with the grip that Fowler has in his car right now, it might be probably superior to Stouffer. I really want to see the next maybe 3 laps or 4 to see where does Fowler stand with his grip and how fast he is compared to the number 13 car out of the Adrenaline Motorsports.
Really curious on all that as well. The leaders continuing to shuffle things about. They are now 57 laps this time by into the respective stints. And the benefit of having this big advantage, as talked about, is rehearsal. You can try and see, okay, can this work? Can that work? What do I need to do to find things out? This is going to benefit Taylor in the long haul, especially towards the end of the race, if he knows how exactly to try and attack Newsom.
Yeah, if we're talking about, cooking a driver, I think Taylor is doing a really good job of cooking Newsom to try to see if she fumbles or see where he can actually find the opening during his second to last in his race, because you can see now on the back wing of Newsom, I don't think she's feeling pressure with Taylor's presence right there. She's just running her normal lines, and Taylor running his lines, and try to get the car as safe as possible into the pit lane. But if we continue like that, it's going to be real interesting, as now both are going to duck down to the pit lane.
And here we go. Pit window was open. They were able to make it to the edge of 60 laps. And in the lane, Newsom, Taylor, Stouffer, Jenkins, Malone, all this time. Fowler, Vandersent, along with Beard and Gouillon among the drivers who were able to extend it an additional lap. And this is going to be critical. Now they need this race to stay green for this to work out for them, especially with the drivers who hit under the several caution flags.
Someone please tell Alex Vandersent this is.
Oh, look at this! Newsom is spun off the pit lane into the grass, side by side with Taylor, nearly making contact with one other car as well. What a moment for Newsom. Yes, indeed. Nearly gone to the side pod of Stouffer as Newsom lit up the tires, trying to beat Taylor off the line. They were side by side on the access road.
Oh. Remember when I said about miracles, Justin?
Well, this is the magic mile, and boy, oh boy, did some magic just happen for Taylor to get some luck. What a mistake, and what a time for that to happen. Keep in mind, they were side by side. Obviously, you don't want to give that up and be that one driver to say, okay, you go first when you're under green. As another car is spinning into the grass at the bottom of the racetrack. Vandersent is spinning on the apron. No caution. We stay green for now as he tries to back it up.
What is... Remember when I said that we talked about the bottom line or the apron being a little bit of the iRacing grass mixed with grip, with some slight grip? Yep, that's what you get. What impressed me the most is that this is the first time we're actually going pitting under green, and they're making mistakes on the bottom of the apron.
And remember, those drivers are one lap down right now, who all just pit with Taylor now being the first of those competitors on that cycle. This all puts Fowler to the lead for now for the next 10 or so laps until he has to come in with Beard and Guyon second and third. De Groot, along with Teed, Houston, Wagner, they're the wild cards now in all this strategy play with Hawkins the third and Musselman. So in our words, you get a caution now with how close it's been with some of these drivers and that tightness with the access road. The fact that it's been that slippery. You need this to stay green. You cannot afford anyone to make a mistake now.
Yeah, it's going to be the most interesting laps in this race so far, easily. And we are not even somewhere close, like 20 laps to finish. We still have quite of a lengthy amount of race to go.
Vern Hawkins III came in 46 laps on his stint at the stripe, so he's now ducked down. Now we're expecting him to go another up to 5 to 6. And it all gets intriguing now how things play out. Fowler's had some great pace, right now running 22.8, but the drivers on fresher tires are picking up 0.3 per lap on the other ones who are staying out right now.
Is that commitment to fuel save the best you can, right? It would have been better if you do that with a little bit of draft, but you can actually do that while trying to save a little bit of fuel all on your own, but you're going to lose quite some lengthy time in the process, and that's what's happening to these guys with our 30 to 28 laps in the stand.
Take a look at the track map. You can see the separation among some of these competitors. A lot of them starting to spread out a little bit. There are some little packs. A couple drivers you see are still in the garage area getting some repairs done, as well as down to the pit lane, but the critical thing to think about is here, with all of this, can drivers like Musselman stretch it? Can drivers like Wagner or Houston stretch it? That's my biggest question mark right now. Those drivers have about, especially in the case of Musselman, 15, 20 seconds of a buffer.
That's what I love. We're starting to see shades of Kentucky here of sorts, right? Where Van der Sande just decided to break our mathematics in terms of fuel saving and fuel gauge, and basically won with like 0.1 left in this race. I think Musselman can do it. If there's one guy in terms of fuel that can actually do it, might be him. But he will take some commitment. If we get a yellow flag, it's like you said, it's gone, right? So it's gonna be an interesting one how this one goes. But the thing is, it's like a little bit of a spread out racing than anything else right now. So it eases up a little bit.
Nick de Groot's also in a great spot with all this too. Right now in 4th spot, has a big time buffer of more than about 20 seconds with some of these competitors. Here's the thing though, de Groot would have to make it 60 laps on a stint. The longest we've seen, even with some of the caution flags tonight, has been about that mark, but it's still going to be tough to get there.
Well, Van der Sande broke the calculator again. He did 61 prior to his pit lane service and his fumble on the pit exit, right? If he can do it, why not the other drivers, right?
Absolutely, and this is a huge opportunity for de Groot. Came very close at Kentucky, remember, a part of that factory-backed performance there where they finished 2 through 4. Now, flying to see if the luck goes that way. Remember how Van der Sande was able to save so much fuel by being able to make it 45 laps a stint a couple times in an all-green race. Keep in mind, as well, there's that full lap advantage still. Just about the group has for some of these competitors. One, make it a couple, having to come in this time. Beard, Guyon have ducked in. Beard made it 56. Guyon only 43. They'll make the slow roll into the pit lane here, and that's concerning if drivers are only making up to 56 on some of these. Chris Fowler was also coming in this time by, and will sacrifice the lead to de Groot, as Taylor back on the gearbox trying to get his lap back.
Now this is the fuel saving game, people. Who can save fuel the best?
See how Taylor approaches this, trying to take a peek to the outside, and Christopher is gaining time with this a little bit. It's looking like Taylor's trying to be patient here, not taking the run to the inside. He wants the outside, Lorenzo.
And because I think he wants a faster line right now with the new tires, so that's why the Groot is going to the inside line, maybe losing a little bit of performance and pro. You know, just let him go by. He's running his race, and he was about a lap down, right? He was the first car to be a lap down on the Groot right now. So what the Groot can actually do, if he is able to do it, save fuel. You have someone to draft.
So Taylor's now back on the lead lap as well, trying to get the lap back. Is Stouffer on the outside line this time by, and does. And you have to think, with Alexis Newsom, without that mistake, it would have been potentially her race to lose with some of the strategy. And now Newsom's having a hard time trying to fight off Chris Fowler at the moment, right behind these drivers. That's how quickly things have changed, especially with the strategies now, and how the group is now trying to fly the flag for factory back.
Yeah, because I think this is the first time where we've seen Alexis in a major scenario of being pressured, right? Because she's been basically all running by herself the entire race, bar I think when we had the first restart, I think when the Groot was actually in the lead and she overtook the Groot with ease. Other than that, she's been all by herself, uncontested, and now she's being finally contested by people, and she has to put some work in it. I think she grazed the wall into the entry of turn number 1.
Done that nearly a couple times, Lorenzo, I've noticed. It's come close with the side pod. Still, I don't know what the Groot here, and it's going to be a very difficult task to get this job done to save. What can you do as a driver to make sure you save some gas? Here's the concerning part. Houston, who had a couple more laps in the tank, pit. Your thoughts, Lorenzo, what the group can do to save?
Oh, 6th gear. I like to say it's like 6th gear. Alexander Rossi strats, try to drop the best he can under some cars and see where he goes. I think we had an issue with Brian Beard and Matt Wagner, by the way, that ended Wagner's race right now, which is really unfortunate.
I believe you may be right. Wagner just had to duck down to the pit lane. He was also 45 laps into a stint, falling down the pylon. Result of contact in turn 1 just a couple laps ago. But as this is all shuffling about, and some of these drivers are dealing with heavy traffic too, and getting some of the laps back. DeGroot is giving a lot of space here. He's still got that buffer by 20 seconds over Taylor. He can afford to back it down here for the next 12 and a half laps.
He's just let everybody go by. It's like the politeness game right now. Just let everybody go by, but at the same time with malicious intents, because he can save fuel behind every single individual he's letting go by, right? And saving a little bit of fuel as well as he actually lifts up the gas and lets everybody go by. And he's still retaining the lead, and he still has a comfortable gap to Charles Teed, which is the second car, who's on the same strategy of fuel saving.
Keep in mind, DeGroot is still in the bank where he can now have to, over the radio, call he has to pit. He has just indicated he has to come down this time by, as well as Charles Teed. So there goes the chances for the group, coming at 10 to go. And now the focus lies on one driver, AJ Musselman. Can he pull off the upset? He's running 23-second lap times, running shorter gear, staying in the 5th, all the way down to 6th gear at the very edge of the straightaways. And he's got a buffer last time by of 5 seconds.
And he's losing basically half a second per lap. For him to win, he would need a yellow flag. Because otherwise, I completely see Taylor, Stouffer, Fowler, and Newsom catching him up.
It'll be having to be one of the longest stints of the night. Really backing it down this time, and Musselman's not going to be able to do this. He comes in with 8 to go. Matt Taylor takes the lead, and now it's the question of can he hold on with Stouffer and Fowler behind.
I think what's the best story right here? Chris Fowler has the tires now adjusted, and he's in the inside of the number 13 of Stouffer. Now Stouffer is the hunted instead of being the hunter for the majority of the race.
Fresher tires try to be utilized. It's about a 15 to 18 lap difference between the two on their stints. Now we're trying to gain some time. Picked up 2/10 last time by. Now having AJ Musselman stay at the bottom of the racetrack. He stays out of the fight. 6 to go. And Stouffer is not giving this up. They are losing time with this. They've lost half a tenth that corner alone.
And I'll be very honest, if Fowler doesn't actually steal the deal this lap or the next one, Matt Taylor wins this race.
Here's the thing though, Fowler gets clear this time. So now it's the true test. Can the fresher tires reel in Taylor? High five from Barney the flagman that time by down to the closing stages from New Hampshire.
If we see 2/10 of a lap, 2/10 of a second per lap, you would be in the closing range and maybe in the final 2 laps to attack. And maybe like a buffer of maybe 1 lap and a quarter of him actually go for the move and win.
He needs to close up. 0.65 seconds. The look for the Espo Designs on board. He picked up half a tenth down the straightaway, down to under 6/10 with 3 laps to go. He needs to close up 2/10 per lap to have any sort of shot. We are now inside the point of no return. Next flag ends the race. Under half a second now. Taylor able to get the better run though as Fowler had to check up a little bit off the corner. 2 laps to go.
Yeah, Fowler had to check up a little bit. The car would actually understeer under the conditions it was actually in because of the aero wash. Now we're going to go with 1 to go. This might be Taylor's race to lose unless he makes it a huge mistake.
Coming up to the final lap, this time by 3/10 picked up that corner by Chris Fowler. White flag is out, final lap for New Hampshire. Fowler needs 1 big leap to get to Taylor. He tries the second line, closes up 3 car lengths. 1 chance to do it. Fowler goes for the move. To the second line, Taylor stays on the 3rd line. To the checkered flag. The Espo Designs New Hampshire 175 presented by the DMLC Racing Channel goes to Matt Taylor. And what an incredible battle in the closing stages of this one. Matt Taylor's first win of the season after a best finish of 2nd coming into tonight. He adds a win in Speedway Series competition after getting the job done in Retro Series competition just a few weeks ago. What a performance by Taylor tonight. And what a battle at the end. Fowler got that close to be able to get side by side Lorenzo. And a big night for Race First as well. That organization has now put themselves into the conversation. Team standings as well with a strong performance from both Taylor and Fowler tonight. The celebrations begin. Taylor is a winner in the Lionheart Speedway Series.
Yep.
An incredible battle all throughout for tonight's action from iRacing's virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. For Taylor tonight, it was a performance to remember. It took a little bit of luck, but it took a lot of speed at the end to hold on with the fresher tires of Fowler closing in. Your race results presented by Carnox, with Taylor taking the victory tonight here from New Hampshire. Fowler finished in second, with Chris Stouffer and Alexis Newsom rounding out the top 4. Unfortunate for Newsom, but big for the driver standing side of things. Paul Jenkins with a very strong top 5 tonight for AeroX Racing, with Brian Beard in 6th. Alex Gouillon, the independent, finished in 7th, with Nick DeGroot, after having to come down, still finishing in 8th position in the race. Trevor Malone, Alexander Van de Sande rounded out your top 10. Matt Houston tried to roll the dice a bit on strategy, comes away with an 11th place run from 24th starting position, and having to serve an EOL with Charles Teed in 12th. AJ Musselman 13th, with Vern Hawkins the 3rd, Greg Forsyth won the drivers multiple laps down. Vern Hawkins the 3rd, 1 down, on with Musselman. The drivers out of the race, Matt Wagner after contact into turn 1, Tyler Graft after several incidents, sees him finish 17th. And a tough break for Tony Shalwin for the championship standings. He finishes in 18th. Mike Rigney, Joe Branch, your top 20. Dean Mall was up towards the front at one point, suffered major trouble after running in 6th position, lost a lot of speed quickly. He finishes in 21st. Robert Malechka III struggled in qualifying after several mistakes. That built up, being involved in trouble and crashing down the back straightaway that ended his race, 22nd. George Anzaldo finished 23rd, Jeff Young in 24th, Eric Rolfe, Christopher Kresge, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, drivers who finish tonight's action. An incredible race tonight. Once more from iRacing's virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. That brings us into the HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear, like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. Let's dive straight into HyperX Victory Lane, where Matt Taylor is celebrating a big victory, his first of the campaign in the Speedway Series. Matt took a little luck with that race off the pit lane, but in the end, you get the job done after having to hold off the fresher tires of Fowler to close things off.
Man, what a tough race. Yeah, the coming off side by side with Alexis was really surprising, and I lifted to let her go, and I think she hit a bump on the inside and spun, which was really easy to do on that exit. And luckily I had pace to kind of gap Chris a little bit. And then Fowler was right there coming at the end. Just a really tricky race with this setup, really hard to pass. And thankfully the strategy worked out, and staying patient paid off.
It absolutely did, and it seemed like at the same time you figured out the lines, because in a couple cases you were able to get some very strong runs coming off the corners, in particular utilizing the 3rd and 4th lines, Taylor.
Yeah, just really, I think, just searching for some clean air. When I was behind Wagner, he was wanting to run the bottom, and I gave a couple passing attempts on him and couldn't get it done, so I was kind of content to ride there and see if I couldn't save some fuel. I think that's what ultimately led to Alexis and I being side by side, is maybe I had just a little bit more fuel and I could take a little less and make up a little bit of that gap. But once I found out I couldn't pass him, I was pretty content to sit there and ride and just wait for a mistake from him, which finally...
Keep in mind as well, by the way, this victory joins you in elite company, putting you in the same group as Sage Karam as the only individuals to win races in multiple Lionheart competitions this year. An impressive feat. And guess what as well, Matt? This puts you right to the thick of things for the championship fight. Your thoughts on that for the closing stages of the season?
That's right where I want to be, and right where I think I can be. It's been an extremely consistent season, which is good. So we got some drops built in and some other things down the stretch here. It's been awesome, and I want to give a quick shout out to the Raceverse guys. They've been awesome, and to Sunset Arctic Graphics.
A big night for you and a big night for your team. Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you.
Matt Taylor, a big victory tonight at iRacing's virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Coming away in second spot was Chris Fowler, and you came up just about a few chances short. One more lap, you might have got him.
Yeah, I just needed one more lap, man. One more. I would have had our first win. That was just an absolutely crazy and exciting race.
First, I just got to thank Donate Life and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation for partnering with me on board this year. It's been a crazy year. I'm just happy to come home in second. That was an awesome battle to come up there and finish side by side with Matt. It was pretty cool. I just needed that one last lap.
And of course, it took a lot of the strategy calls that come into play with some of the cautions coming into play. Keep in mind, fewest cautions at New Hampshire ever with 6 tonight when it comes to Lionheart competition. How was it trying to shuffle that around or trying to figure out, okay, is this the caution I pit?
Yeah, well, it was crazy because me and Stouffer got together in 3, and that gave me 15 seconds of damage. So I went all the way back to 19th, and then we had that late caution, and everybody pitted. I stayed out, gained that track position, and that ultimately helped me at the end there to get the fresher tires at the end and go through. So, but that 15 seconds of damage really killed me. I went all the way back to 19th, and I thought my race was over at that point. But luckily, that caution came out and just stayed out and got some good track position, and that really helped.
And of course, when it comes to the team standing side of things, it's a big night for Team Race Force, especially on the red side with your performance, with Matt's performance, with Team Race Force as well. What's it like now knowing your organization with tonight joins the thick of things for the team standing side?
Oh, it's great. We've been really working hard every week, getting practice laps in and just trying to improve and get better. And we had a great race tonight for the entire team. So just awesome effort by everybody on Team Race Force Red and Black. So pretty excited. You know, we're working really hard together, trying to get the laps in, get some team strategy going, and it paid off tonight. So hopefully we can keep that going, keep the momentum going, and keep moving up in the team championship.
Congratulations on the second place run, Chris.
Thank you.
So it's Chris Fowler in second, another Chris. Chris Stouffer finished in third. Chris, first things first. An interesting race for you. Up towards the front much of the way. Your thoughts on how things played out with your Adrenaline Motorsports machine?
That was a short track racing right there, that's for sure. A lot of real tight, close racing, very hard to pass. You know, personally, I think I made a lot of bad calls in that race, just with pit stops and whatnot. I guess I wasn't too terrible because I didn't manage to finish third, but you know, it was a very difficult race all the way around.
Indeed. What was it like trying to figure out this racetrack for tonight? Because for some, they described it as their first experiences with New Hampshire. What was that like for you to learn this circuit and figure out which lines you need to take?
Well, I've done a lot of races here at New Hampshire. It's usually not one of my favorite tracks. I was able to, you know, use the bottom line a little bit more than a lot of other people, but at the same time, you did need all the track you could get on the way out to be able to try to make a pass, and it took several laps to make a pass on the inside. The outside was really the preferred line just so you could get the run and also get that little bit of draft going down the straightaway. So you know, finding your line, trying to pick your way through traffic was difficult, and that's why I was saying earlier about the pit strategies. I kind of wish I would have stayed out and stayed up front. Somehow I managed to get back up there though and finish third at the end of the day, so I can't complain too much.
Indeed, and keep in mind with this performance tonight, you now move into the top 5 in the point standings. Your thoughts on that, knowing you are also now within that championship discussion within that fight?
Well, I would know I was up there for most of the season. Indy really hurt a lot, being double points, and you know, having such a good run. I was fuel saving that entire race, was better than anybody else in fuel at that point, and so yeah, that still sticks with me just because it's such a big race. Hopefully it doesn't affect the overall result at the end of the year, but you know, any point gains are good, and just got to keep consistent top 5s from here on out. Just hope for the best.
Thank you very much for the time, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris Stouffer, rounding out your top 3. I'd like to thank him, Chris Fowler, and Matt Taylor for joining us for post-race coverage. And boy, oh boy, what a schedule it's been so far. 8 different winners throughout the campaign. Your thoughts, Lorenzo, as the next race sees us go to Chicagoland?
Yeah, it's been a very fantastic race right here, and well done to everybody to keep the car on track. It was a race with attrition. We go to Chicagoland. I like that track quite a lot, but how they will handle that very short oval track is going to be an interesting one.
It's going to be very interesting indeed, especially with some of the shuffling in the championship standings. We'd like to take the time to thank the sponsors who are a part of the Lionheart Speedway Series and Lionheart Racing Series, the DMLC Racing Channel. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than them. Former Lionheart Retro Series driver of the year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. As well, HyperX. Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. Key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver to car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com. Don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off orders. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to also use Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. And it's not just those names, but many more and all the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series that help bring this series to fruition. To learn more about them, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. You can also find out more information on the 3 competitions that the Lionheart sanctioning body runs. Lots more Lionheart competition is to come. To follow along with the action, be sure to keep up with Lionheart on social media at Lionheart Series. While ESTV has your esports needs, and RaceSpot has your V Motorsports action covered. Be sure to follow along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and more. And be sure to hit the YouTube subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you keep up with all the sim racing action we get to cover. The next time the Lionheart Racing Series hits the track is back here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the Lionheart Retro Series presented by Sim Experience and its 5th running of the Sim Experience 150 at New Hampshire presented by DeWars Candy. That takes place August 5th at 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:35 p.m. Pacific. But with that, it's time to say goodbye. For Istvan Balu, for Arjuna Kankapati, for Renzo Bonder, I'm Justin Prince. Thank you for watching RaceSpotTV and ESTV's coverage of tonight's action. Congratulations to Matt Taylor, your winner from the Magic Mile.